The crickets are singing their crickety songs. The moon's in the sky.
Well, I think I got my coffee.
Okay. Yeah, everything looks good.
He's sitting
It's great to meet
beside
Really?
you.
me.
Thank you for taking a
He's
minute out today.
holding my
Oh, I'm very
hand.
excited. I've scheduled my whole
The
week around
evening is
you.
Excellent. I love it. So, before we get into your latest album,
and
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Bound for Land,
home.
today kind of marks the 4-year anniversary of surviving this pandemic and getting through it. And I'm curious, if we go back in time, how did you get through that time period as an artist, and how did it subsequently change you?
What a wonderful question. Because I was just thinking that as I woke up this morning, I was thinking, uh, how, I mean, normally I'm not that isolated a person, but I wasn't living with any family members at the time of the pandemic. So I was alone. And I enjoyed it so much because it gave me the opportunity to write. And I did write, and I was late in making my second album. And I just thought, why don't I just take this opportunity to, organize a new record? Because, when you're making a record or trying to conceive of a record, it's not always about writing. Sometimes it's about coming up with the concept and choosing your material. Most writers have a lot of material, but they may not deem it worthy.
Yeah.
And so you have to think about, well, what's good, what needs rewriting? Do I have any new ideas? Do I have something really old that I was unfair to years ago?
Yeah.
And so I basically organized the record and started recording it before the pandemic was even completely over. People were kind of creeping out in 2022. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah.
I mean, we weren't in lockdown, but there was a lot of caution and a lot of fear. But I just went into the studio and we put our masks on and we, had just recovered from COVID, and I recorded the record in post-COVID voice.
Yeah.
And but so I'm looking back on that time as being incredibly, I mean, don't hate me for this,
No.
incredibly productive
Sure.
and worthwhile. And, there was an economic contraction, so I didn't have the resources I was normally used to. I like to travel. I like to, um, live a pretty big life. And it all of a sudden got like this big.
Yeah.
So instead of traveling, instead of trying to make money, or, I just lived on what I had and I worked on my art, and I was very happy doing that.
There's a lot of people that say the same thing, and I think there's a level of buyer's remorse. I don't think it takes away from the woe that we all went through, but I think that it, especially for artists that gave people a minute to pause, because things happen so fast. There's so much going on. But when you have that minute to just creatively dig in, and really at the same time, during that time period, we were all living the Bob Dylan moment. I mean, there was so much going on. There was so much heavy that could have been written about and felt at that time. It was kind of like the perfect nexus, the perfect intersection of creating art and taking a minute to just breathe in.
Exactly. So
So,
I agree. You don't know if you're going to die.
right.
That's the thing. Is I even wrote a song, like the first time that I went to the grocery store after having been sitting in my apartment having stuff delivered to me. um I went into the parking lot and I pulled my car in, and I thought, if I go into the store to buy a bag of pears, am I gonna die now? Like, and someone sneezed on me, and I was just like, okay, well, now I have to write about that.
Yeah.
It's not a jazz tune, so you won't want to hear it on this show, but it was more like a reckoning
Yeah.
of, am I ready to go? And if so, then what am I thinking about as this
Right.
happens? So for, I mean, I'm not just an artist, I'm a mom and I'm a businesswoman, and I do lots of different things and have different perspectives on life. But when it came down to what am I going to do in this last year of my life, if that's what it is, it was music.
Yeah. For sure. For sure. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like that whole idea of like Evil Knievel. He always said if something went bad, something went sideways, he was going to die doing what he loved.
That has to be it. I
Yeah,
mean, God bless evil. He said it better than I've been talking for 10 minutes and he just summed it up in 2 words.
that's it. You're doing what you love. That's the bottom line. So talk to me about the album. You talked about being hatched during this COVID time, and now
Mhm.
that we're really fully out and hopefully everything's getting back to a better place, how does it feel on a cerebral level to have this album out now?
It feels wonderful. I'm so happy I did it. I love my songs. I hope that other people love them, but I understand if they don't, because there's something out there for everybody. It's an eclectic record. It does have some very folky things on it. It does also have more jazzy type things. I wouldn't call it, as a person who respects jazz artists,
Yeah.
I feel a little shy about calling myself that because I just have a long way to go. And once you jump into that jazz rabbit hole, you go down there and you just stay forever.
Yeah.
And then the folkies are like, where'd you go, Leslie?
Uh-huh.
Come but forget what was the question again. I'm still waiting.
The question was just how good does it feel to have this album out now?
Oh, it feels great. Things are different than they were 10 years ago, releasing a record, because you could actually sell your record. You could tour easily. There were places to play. The landscape is different now. You really don't, unless someone buys your record on Bandcamp or will give you $20 for a CD. Nobody even wants CDs now anymore. We used to make them because some people need them, DJs especially, folk DJs especially. But it's a different plan now. 10 years ago, it was make a CD, go on tour, places to play. Now you really have to fight for gigs. There's a lot of competition. So I have to decide how to promote it. And it's not so much a product now as it is just a reflection, a representation of what I do. And it's always been like that, I
Yeah.
guess. But it's
Yeah.
not a widget anymore.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm a businesswoman. As a businesswoman, I used to be able to see my product as here's my product, represents me, it's for sale, that's not how it is anymore. The way it is now is it's really just a calling card for you as a performer. So if you want to be a musician, I think these days you really have to perform.
Yeah. And I think it's a good byproduct of living through the pandemic is that people do want to feel that interchange of energy molecules in a room. I think they want to feel that symbiotic relationship between audience and performer.
They really, really do want that, but there's less of it than there was, and people are doing a lot of performing online on Zoom. They have these broadcasted concerts they do to connect with their fans. I'm not that systematic.
Yeah.
I'm very casual about how I approach performing. Um, I like to go into a living room with 12 or 20 people
Yeah.
and sing off mic. I mean,
Yeah.
that's kind of what I like. Because you talk about the molecules in the room,
Yeah.
a lot of molecules when you're singing just with your guitar.
Yeah.
I love
I,
that.
I remember hearing a quote from John Mayer after he made it really big. For some reason, I saw some like Nightline or 2020 on him. And when he finally made it big, he said, all I used to do before I got big was sit in my room and play my guitar, pretending like I was in front of 50,000 people. He said, now that I'm in front of 50,000 people, I just want to go back to my room. It was
Yeah,
interesting, you know?
he can have both. He has that
Right.
choice.
He certainly can. He can have a lot of things now, but that was the interesting thing about, I think it was more of a mentality of where you get to, because that's just the way that it begins. It begins as a kind of a solitary event, and then it just explodes once people find out into a bigger thing.
Yeah, I mean, and that's how you get your polish.
Yeah.
It's interesting watching people who perform a lot have a great polish. You know, they sing in tune, the guitar goes with the, guitar goes with the voice, and there's always mistakes, but they don't matter that much. So I guess, I mean, someone like John Mayer, I imagine he put thousands of hours into being a hermit in his room.
Easy. Yeah.
Easily. Yeah, and some of the people I know, like this guy I perform with named Rick Ruskin, he's a very well-known fingerstyle performer. I mean, he's just been like, had been a hermit in his room since he was probably 11, 12 years old, and started performing at the age of 15. And out, opening for Reverend Gary Davis and then studying with him. And he's very, very polished. I'm my focus has always been on writing, even though I am a singer. I accompany myself on guitar. There's better guitar players out there for sure, but I just need to be able to perform simply just to accompany and put the songs across. And in writing in the jazz vernacular, that is, I mean, I have to be really simple, because if I
Right.
try to be fancy, it falls apart.
Yeah. What's interesting?
Yeah,
Talking about, just the finesse that people have. The social psychologist Malcolm Gladwell said after 10,000 hours, you're a master of something.
that's what
So,
I,
you know,
yeah.
it's that whole idea that you get to a point where you've done it for so long, that's just kind of you're the master of that domain, you know.
Mhm.
So,
Oh,
and
yeah,
and and musicians spend countless hours before anything happens. And even in between. I mean, there's so much practice and all that that goes into it. So,
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, it's, I've always focused on the writing more than the performing.
yeah.
And so, I mean, I need some more 10,000 hours.
Yeah. Find some kind of cloning machine, and then just merge the people together. So, um, take me back to where you were born and raised. How did this journey into the music begin and evolve into who you are today?
Well, I was born in Chicago, and my father worked in a steel mill. And this is a long time ago. I have a few years under my belt. And then when I was young, he saw the Rust Belt coming. He saw that steel was beginning to rust, and so he left with a friend of his, and they came to California to start a business. So I grew up in California in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
And so that is where the whole musical world, pop music world, exploded into a beautiful phantasmagorical, I would say poster,
Yeah.
because they were everywhere, those posters,
Yeah.
incredible creative expression.
Yeah.
My parents, my mother is not musical. Um, my father is musical, but never became a musician. But we had these records, jazz records, but not modern jazz records. They were Ella Fitzgerald's records, and they were, people singing Gershwin and Jerome Kern and musicals and the whole nine yards. And so I listened to all that stuff. That was the first stuff that got in my head. Then, of
Yeah.
course, I went to parochial school, so hymns, and I was in the choir. A lot of people learn their music from singing in the choir. So I got training that way. But then when the 70s happened, all the rest of that just went into the background. All I cared about was pop music.
Yeah.
Because it was so good.
Yeah. For sure.
It
For sure.
was. And then I started writing songs right away. When I was even just a child, I would run around, I would write poetry and try to make up melodies to go with them. So this is something that was just, I don't know why I was chosen to do it, but I was inspired from a very young age to write melody and words and put them together. And it took a long time to learn the craft of creating, structure and all of that. But I started writing when I was a kid. So
So what was the first live show you saw that blew you away?
the first live show I saw that blew me away, every single one. Every,
Yeah.
I think the very first concert I went to was a combination of Joan Baez. I
Wow.
think I was 12 years, Joan Baez and It's a Beautiful Day. Do you remember that band?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We have a
They
shop
had
in
this,
Kansas City called It's a Beautiful Day. It's named after them.
oh, okay. So they, I think the La Flammes actually lived around the area. And they played White Bird, that song we're all obsessed with. And then there was also I think it was 3 acts. It was Joan Baez, It's a Beautiful Day, and the cast of the San Francisco cast of Hair.
Wow.
So this is 1969 or something, or 1970. Maybe it was 60. I can't remember. Right around then, I was in junior high. And they came down and they sang all these songs from Hair, which are fantastic songs.
Yeah.
I mean, not only is it like a great hippie thing, but that's a really good Broadway musical.
Yeah.
So that was the 70s pop thing married with the Broadway musical. My brain just exploded because that's what I knew.
Yeah. Yeah.
I loved that. And of course, Joan Baez was absolutely beautiful. Beautiful performer, so riveting. And It's a Beautiful Day. Well, that they just had a big hit that year. So how could I not love it?
Oh, for sure.
So not the most, they're very famous bands, but there's 100 of them that could have ignited anybody.
Yeah.
But I think that was a trifecta of the folky, the pop, and the musical. And it's so funny thinking about that because those are
Yeah.
the three things that I love.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. No, that's great. I'm glad it brought back a good memory. So all of these years of doing it, what do you like the best about being a professional singer?
I like the way my voice sounds in my head when the when
Yeah.
when it comes out.
Yeah.
I just I just like the sound of my own voice. And some people love it. Some people think it sounds great. Other people probably just walk by and don't listen to it. But to me, it just gives me physical pleasure to sing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know when it sounds good and I know when it needs a little work, but I
So
still love it.
yeah, absolutely. And the one thing I think that's always endearing about people that have been doing this for a long time is what has been the fuel for you to continue to evolve and to continue your career after all of these years? What is that love? What's that daily passion?
Well, since I started kind of late with my performing, um, that was never the incentive. The incentive was never to perform publicly or be professional. It was always just to do it because I loved it. And so I mean, I very literally was an amateur for many, many years, just doing it for the love of it. And I suddenly realized that because I had done it so much that I might have a level. I might have a level that was good enough to compete with some of the other people who were doing it. And it's not a competition in terms of who's better, but there is an airtime competition. People have to decide, are they going to look at this or are they going to look at this?
Yeah.
So I don't believe in ranking,
Yeah.
but um, but you only have a certain amount of limited time in your life, and you're not going to spend it listening to stuff you don't want to listen to. So there's
Yeah.
airtime,
Yeah.
and attention. Um, but I never questioned why I was doing it. I never wondered why I was doing it. Once I started doing it in public, that brings a whole new set of challenges. But if nobody ever wanted to hear me anymore, I would be perfectly fine because I would just still do it.
Yeah.
It's like breathing for me. And I know that maybe it sounds a little pretentious. But in fact, it is one of the things that I've always done.
Yeah.
And it's something I brush my teeth, I brush my hair, I have dinner, I call people on the phone, and I write songs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does that sound weird.
No, it's great. I mean, you do what makes you happy, and that's it. It's a natural part of your DNA.
It's, yeah, I do what makes me happy. And
Yeah.
there are not that many things that bring joy in this world to me. I mean, if you were a real Buddha or somebody, you could receive joy from, waking up and looking out the window. It takes me a lot to get joy from just that.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, I need more, I need a lot of, I need to put in a lot of work in order to get joy out. And, you know, I have struggles, mood struggles, motivation struggles. I think we all do. And I think of music as actually being the antidote for my struggles.
Sure. Sure.
So,
So, of all of the things that you've done and accomplished and become in your life, what are you the proudest of?
um, well, there's three things. Well, for instance, I showed my dad my new record. I said, Dad, here's my dad's 95.
Wow.
I gave the record. I gave him a review very nice review that I got in American Songwriter magazine, which was, for me, it was like huge.
Yeah,
Even
sure.
if it was a tiny review, it was positive. So I showed it to him and I go, Dad, here's my record. Here's a review. He goes, you better watch out or I might become proud of you.
Very nice.
Yeah. And I'm like, well, Dad, I raised a couple of great kids.
Yeah.
I used my aptitudes in a way that that is productive. I didn't waste my life and I'm
Yeah.
not wasting it. And I managed to keep myself afloat financially without anyone else's help.
Yeah.
I think those are the three big things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I got kids. I've got, I can support myself and I'm making music. Those are three things. Not everyone makes music. People have other hobbies and things that they do. But those are things that anyone can have.
Yeah. Sure.
Oh,
Sure.
I'm no different than anybody.
Yeah.
I'm proud of being normal.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. If you could get into a time machine and go back in time and see one performer live that you never saw, who would you love to see live?
Oh, Elvis,
Yeah.
100%.
Did you?
Because when I was growing up, I didn't appreciate him because I thought he was a cornball. I
Yeah.
wasn't in the right generation. And then only in recent years have I realized that he is truly the king. And the reason for that is in his performance, he gives everything
Yeah. Yeah.
to the audience. It's all about that transfer of energy and communication, and it's just egoless.
Yeah.
It's pure gift.
Yep. I agree.
And I would love to have experienced that.
Yeah. That would be incredible. Did you see the movie they just made?
I couldn't watch it. I tried
Yeah.
to watch it and I found it uh very judgmental of
Yeah.
all the kids.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and also, if you've seen footage of Elvis, it's really kind of hard to see other people playing him.
Yeah, it's weird because we are pretty saturated with his existence, that's for sure. Because as I watched it, I would go to YouTube and just watch the actual footage, and it was everywhere. Like everything they did in there was
Mhm.
actually replicated in some version of his real life. So it was strange.
Well, I mean, you know, it was definitely a great achievement, and I love that director. I
Yeah,
think he's a brilliant director. I don't like every movie he makes, though, but I
yeah.
mean, I have to respect it. And then the performers that they hired for that movie were amazing.
Oh yeah,
There are a
yeah,
lot of good things about it.
yeah, yeah,
Um, so I mean, that's kind of an obvious answer, Elvis, but it's just when you go to performance, you want to be electrified and spellbound. And I just
absolutely.
anyone that would do that more.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then there's also Joni Mitchell, but I've seen her.
yeah. Sure, sure. So everyone out there has a perception of you, family, friends, fans, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Um, I think I'm, I wish I knew how other people saw me.
Yeah,
Then I could answer that more easily.
yeah.
Like, I know it's got to be different. Uh, I just think I'm, a shy person who struggles to communicate. That's how I think of myself. I don't
Yeah.
think I'm an introvert. I like to talk to people. I like to be with people. I get energy from people, but I find it hard. So, and so I just feel like a little girl a lot of the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, don't we all feel like a child?
I, I,
Or no?
I remember one time I was taking a poetry class in college, and there was a woman in the class that was probably in her 70s at the time.
Mhm.
And we went around and everybody said, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And I will never forget. She said, "I don't ever want to grow up." That was her whole answer. And it was just so profound, just the way that she explained how it all, and it was that idea. It's like, I think, the poet Charles Bukowski one time says we're born geniuses and buried idiots. And it's the whole idea that as life goes on, we put all these fences up and these things around our lives and wall ourselves in. And there's something to be said about staying young and staying effervescent, because one way or another, the world tries its best to kind of take that away from us.
It really does. And boy, Charles Bukowski he had a lot of insight,
Yeah.
in spite of his strange and coarse writings.
Yeah.
They're also brilliantly perceptive. One of the things that I would like to say is that as a child, you are innocent because you don't really know how the world works.
Yeah.
And you're manipulated by the forces around you and you don't know how to deal with them. Then as you grow up, you slowly start to understand the systems that have been put in place for us to live our lives, to control us or give us freedom, however people want to perceive it. And so I know I'm not a child because because I've had to take on responsibilities. And when you take those on, you start to understand kind of how the world works.
Yeah.
And I don't know how it works completely, but I know a lot more about it now than I was when I was a kid.
Yeah.
So I know I'm not a child. I know I'm not a kid, but there are aspects of being human that don't change throughout your life. And one
Yeah.
of them is trying to tread lightly, being afraid of things around you. Maybe that's just being a woman, because we are kind of grow up with a kind of watch out, you
Yeah.
know.
Uh-huh.
So that might, I don't know how you are, if you can relate to that, like, or do you think that that's a,
I think I like the gender spin. I live with three generations of women, and I see a lot of that, because for
uh,
me it's less like all right, let's go. I'm ready. Let's go, I roll different.
it is different, it's a little different for men. I mean, everyone's different. There is a spectrum of ways to approach the world, as there is spectrum in gender and sexuality, but uh, I don't know. I think that one of the great things about being trepidatious is that it kind of allows you to look at things around you before you venture forth.
Right.
There's something to be said for that.
Sure.
There's a lot to be said for let's go, let's do it too.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, and I admire that greatly. In fact, I wish I could be a little more like that. I
Yeah.
want to be like you. Actually,
Well, we all have to be motivated and admired by, I mean, we have to admire each other. That's the beauty of life. There's so many things that are different about us, but we just pull all of these things that are magnanimous. So that's the beauty of the difference of all of us. So it certainly is. So Bound for Land is the brand new album. If anyone wants to pick it up, where's the best place to go? Learn about live shows, anything about your world, where can they go?
well, let's see. Well, I have a website, leslieevers.com.
Okay.
There is another person with a website that's similar to that, but she's spelled differently. She sells dresses, beautiful dresses.
Yeah.
It's not the same spelling, and that's not me.
Yeah.
So it's just leslieevers.com, and then there's a tab that says listen. And if you go to that tab, you can listen to the record on Spotify for free or stream it on Apple Music. You can buy it on Bandcamp, and that most of that money goes directly to me. But I just want people to listen. I don't really care how they do it. If they want to buy a CD, you can order it from the website. It's a lot easier to download things now, I think. And that's what people want to do. My next performance is a house concert in North Carolina. So if you're in the Triangle, the Research Triangle area in North Carolina, Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill, let me know by sending me or email. You can message me on Facebook. I have a public page. So just go to Leslie Evers Music and send me a message. Say, I want to go to your concert. Do it now because it's going to fill up.
Okay. Excellent. Leslie, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your story. Best of luck with everything. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Joe. And I would love to talk again sometime.
Absolutely. We'll pick it back up.
Off camera.